So, a lot of serious stuff today. I wanted to have some joy too, and that's a fun one. I didn't plan all the joys and sorrows today. I don't tell people what to say or anything, just to be clear. And yet, they just set me up perfectly for my sermon, so thank you. Sometimes you feel like you come up here to preach and the best sermon has already been given earlier in the service. So I'm going to try. But in the tough times in my life, much like we heard earlier, my religious community has picked me up and held me. Sometimes that community has been the congregation I was a member of or serving as a minister. Sometimes it's been my colleagues in ministry who are just so wonderful and supportive. Some of them you heard from today. Leslie Takahashi is one of our really great ministers out in California. Sometimes it's been our neighbors. My youngest sometimes likes to go on walks by himself and gets lost easily. And, the first time it happened in our neighborhood, I was really worried. But the whole neighborhood mobilized and went out to find him, and everyone was just so wonderful. And sometimes it's been family that has lifted me up. Sometimes it's been family who is doing the bringing me down. It's a mix. But we find it where we can. And so a month or two ago when we were talking about our generosity campaign and we stumbled upon this theme of ordinary heroes, that's what I was thinking about, is the people and the communities that lift you up when you need it. Because our world runs every day on the work and energy of those ordinary heroes, people who are doing good things in their jobs or in their homes or their communities, or all three, a lot of them. The kind of ordinary heroes who reach out to their neighbor in help and care and love. And so when we talk about our generosity campaign, a big part of that, the part that we follow up on, is how we're financially contributing to support the congregation. And that really matters. Because if you've been here even for a moment, you'll know that we don't really charge for anything here. You don't have to pay a ticket or a fee at the door. The things that really matter here are free, and free to anyone. They do cost money to run, however. We do actually need some resources, at least. It would be a very different community, a really great one still, but a very different community if we didn't have any financial resources to use. We wouldn't have this building, for one thing. You might not have me, because I would probably stay a little closer to home. Anyway, so when I say that financial matters matter, they do, but they're not all that matters. We have people of considerable financial means and those with very little financial resources. And so your financial pledge, while important, is not the only thing that matters by any stretch. And it's not the only thing that makes this congregation run. The people who come here, the people who are here as a part of this community are what make it happen. I love the children's thing about here's the church and here's the steeple and open it. The church is the people, right? It's not the building, though that's nice. We talk about it that way sometimes. The money we give to support our congregation helps. We have professional staff for some things here. We have this beautiful building and grounds as a headquarters for our ministries. It does take some money to run things like the technology that takes our ministry out into the world. But that's not the point. I'd like you all to take a moment and remember. You can close your eyes or not, whatever works for you. Just get comfortable. Sit and think about the happiest, most powerful memory you have in this congregation, whether it was years ago or this morning. I'll just pause for a second and let us think. It might have been something someone up here said, or as Adam lifted up earlier, he can't remember what that first sermon was about, but he remembered how it made him feel. Or it might have been a conversation out at coffee hour, or in a chalice circle, or spending time with our children, or doing social justice work, or singing in the choir, or together as a congregation, or 1,000 other things, planting a tree. And so I hope you have that moment, or maybe many moments in your mind now. And I want you to think about how amazing that moment was. Because I know even if you can't all tell me right now, I've heard some of them because I've been listening for a few months. And some of you have told me about such memories, about raising children in the congregation, or about building this very facility in which we worship, or about the sermons, or meals shared, or people helped. I've heard some about particularly moving words and rituals from ministers and lay people and our young folks here in worship. I've heard testimony from people about the first time they came here, or the moment that made them realize they wanted to be a member. And if I haven't yet heard about your moment, I do want to hear about it, so find me some time and share that. Maybe not all today right after service. We have some time. For now, though, hold that image in your memory, in your mind, and now think about what it took to make it happen. Because if it happened here in this building, you could think about those who helped build this place and the people and resources that maintain it. Or if staff helped make your moment happen, or lay leaders, or our administrative staff whose work behind the scenes makes so many things possible here. All those people who did something that allowed or made that special memory happen. I think of our partners in the larger community who depend on the contributions we give them, the money we give them from our Split the Plate, or the many hours and donations we put into their programs. I think of the incredibly wonderful and dedicated people who care for our children, including my own children, our staff and volunteers and teachers, the people who created the curriculum and other resources we use in our religious education, and so many more. So today, these are the things I think about. In fact, I think about these things all the time as a minister and a member of the board, and in our finance committee meetings. Shout out to Adam. And so today I want to talk about stewardship, which is sort of a jargony word we use in churches a lot. We often say that word when we mean we're asking for money, and that's true. As I've lifted up several times, it does take a fair amount of money to keep this place running and to do our ministries in the full, vibrant way we would like to. But more than that, I mean stewardship in the sense of caring for. We heard just this morning about all the ways that people have been cared for and have cared for others. In the season in which we talk about how to best support our congregation, I like to think of balance. How do we find balance in our lives? How can we find balance in the way we manage the things that matter most to us? We can't give everything we have, but we want to give as much as we can. I don't think there's a magic formula for this either. There's not some ratio I can tell you for how much you should care or how much you should give or how much time you should put into sleep versus work versus taking care of the kids versus driving or what other things you need to do. But I have some thoughts about managing this. Many of us have either now or at least at some point in our lives had to set time aside for work and time for family. We take time to enjoy now and hopefully some time and money to plan for the future. We may crave stability, but we need to make sure we stay open to change too. Now, I don't pretend to be an expert on doing any of these things well. I'm trying. And I try to do them all with intention and with compassion. And in our congregational stewardship, our congregation's leadership does the same sort of thing. We want to have some balance. We want to aim for the stars and build foundation under it to hold us. We want to balance our budgets, and in so doing, see how we might be able to fund our ministries ever better, cut some costs if we can. We want to be financially sustainable, but also support our thriving ministries in the strongest way possible. And so great stewardship from our members and friends is a key part of that. Why I ask you to think about what you can do to support this congregation this year. And I also, every year during this time, when we talk about this, I think of dear, dear friends of mine from my home church. Though like me, they've since moved from that area. They now live in North Dakota, of all places, which is nowhere I want to live, but good for them. So this was more than 15 years ago now. One year was a married couple, as they sat down to talk about their pledge, they were thinking about these issues, how to balance generosity to their church community with their other financial responsibilities. And as they spoke to each other, they realized how much the church meant to them, and that indeed it meant more than a lot of other things in their life that they were spending money on. They decided they'd rather give some of the money they had previously used for things like entertainment instead to the church, recognizing the role it was playing in their life. I'm not telling you to give up your movie money or your daily coffee run, but as we fill out pledge sheets and either turn them in right now, we're happy to take them, or online later maybe. And thank you to those of you who already pledged. As we think about that, these are the sorts of things we want to think about. What's the world we want to create? What are the resources we want to put into making the lives we dream about? What has our congregation and our communities meant to us, and what could it mean to others? So in short, this congregation needs your support. Here, we welcome people to come and to be transformed, to find balance, to find depth and power. And it takes all of us to make that happen, and all that we can do to make it happen. Because good church takes resources, because it is powerful and it needs fuel. I quoted Reverend Victoria Weinstein earlier in the service, and I'm going to quote her once again. She says, "It is a lot of inner work, a lot of thinking and reflecting and talking with people about how to be, and it's expensive. I give my church a lot of my time and my money, but it really is working a miracle in my life, which feels amazingly freer, richer, more meaningful, deep, and hopeful now than it did before I devoted myself to religious community and practice." And when she says this to people out in the world, she adds, "If you're interested, I'd love for you to be my guest for a Sunday service." If that sort of experience isn't worth supporting, I don't know what is. So I encourage you to remember that all things are possible. We're the ones who must help make them reality. In other words, we are the ordinary heroes we seek. May it be so.